Hi, Lee.
Hi, it's still warm. Shall we talk about the West Wing?
Yes, I'd love to talk about anything but the weather. Welcome back, dear listeners, to Queer Gals Watch the West Wing with myself, Fee, and the lovely but warm, maybe slightly sort of glowing Lee Douglas there on my little icon on my laptop. We are here discussing season 4, episode 19 of The West Wing, Angel Maintenance.
I'm thrilled. I'm excited. Should we get into it?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm excited to be up in the air, Lee, and off of the boiling hot ground.
Off of the burning planet we call home.
Yeah, honestly, and just on a very, very long airplane journey, just emitting emissions into the air, thus making the planet what it is now.
But crucially, with AC, so you can block that thought out.
Exactly. God, it's really good to kind of be back in some nitty gritty episodes. Last week I had a real romp. I'm fired up by the title, Angel Maintenance. Honestly, I was sat and ready to go.
Yeah.
The previously on also was deeply intriguing because it was kind of like the press corps and CJ.
Yes, in a kind of rom-com-esque fashion.
Yeah.
CJ's relationship with the press.
They are the person she's dating.
The press is her, Mr. Darcy.
We open on Air Force One, so already things are good, with a really fun opener between CJ and a few members of the press gang trying to work out what time it is where. I really related to that because during this heat wave, that's kind of been me every second of every day, just trying to work out what time it is and where I
am. Yes. It does feel that this episode is a real coming home for CJ in the way that Hannah turns to Marnie at one point in Girls and says, I think you're the true love of my life. Maybe post losing her boyfriend to gun violence, CJ has come home to the realization that the press corps is the true love of her life.
And I think there's some learnings to take from that, as much as that is a kind of witty take, Lee. I think CJ's I don't need a relationship. What I need is some hot, passionate sex from time to time and a good circle of friends.
Yeah, agreed.
Love that for her. Should we talk about this flight attendant uniform? It's really kind of popped off for you in a big way.
I happen to love it, I have to say. The pencil skirt, there's a little baby blue shirt with a necktie, like a little neckerchief. And a waistcoat with the presidential seal. I love.
It's really nice to just have a moment, even though it was a little passing by shot with the flight attendants on Air Force One. Because how would one get that role? Do you get headhunted from a different crew?
I think famously from our deep dive into Air Force One, they started off as Pan Am flight attendants. And I believe they are now actually serving members of the Air Force.
Yeah, that's kind of iconic to me.
Agreed.
Because you are a flight attendant, which is a very important job, but also you are still protecting the president. It's hot, frankly.
You would be helping him evacuate in case of emergency, as we almost do this episode.
I was are we leaning towards that? In any way, Aaron truly edged us throughout this episode that we were going to have a plane crash and then just kind of left us, honestly, quite literally up in the air. Jed himself in a lovely little outfit for this episode.
He's in his own merch, which is very cute. He's in a little presidential seal logoed zip up, which I found adorable.
He does eat up in a zip up. I will say.
I think it's his equivalent of Obama's rolled up shirt sleeves.
Yes. And that's the thing is it's still a smart trouser.
Oh, it's still a shirt and tie.
Yeah. And yet the little zip up is but I'm just dad, you know?
Hey, I'm off duty.
It's a long flight. It's an 18-hour flight and I need to be comfortable.
Yeah.
In my zip up.
The other thing that's adorable is that he's just having a gab to Leo on the phone and just gently rocking himself in his chair as they chat.
Which feels very one of my grandparents on a phone to a sibling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a little tannoy announcement from the commander.
Mm-hmm.
And he says some weird kind of jargon. And anyway, he ends up coming into the room where, well, Jed's office on Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
And Jed looks at him and he's like, turn left, maintain altitude. And I was like, oh, that's code.
We love a code.
But does mean something wrong with the plane.
Concerning.
We're not landing when we thought we were going to land. We're just staying in the air. And the very kind of calm and assuring commander, who Jed refers to as Jesse, and so I will call him Jesse throughout. It's just like, yeah, basically, we're just going to like fly around, see if we can get this like landing wheel down. We're going to get a fighter plane to come up here and see if they can have a look at it. Yeah, but there are a number of options after that point.
This was the most anxiety-inducing part of this whole thing for me, is like, I would need to know the options. Because saying there are a number of options at that point terrifies me. Because it's like, why are you not getting into the specifics? You not getting into the specifics makes me feel like none of those options are good. Because ultimately the plane is currently in the air and some way, somehow, it will have to come down.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are kind of hardwired to maybe slightly catastrophize from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is slick as hell from Jesse, because I also was like, what the hell, Jesse, tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, he just is acknowledging that Jed has capacity for a certain amount of information at a time.
Mm-hmm.
He is only giving him the information that is pertinent to now.
Mm-hmm.
And also like, what? So I'm going to stand here and brief you for 10 minutes on all the things that we could do, but then we might find out something, which means that none of those things are options. I'm not going to waste your time, sir. You're the president of the United States.
That's so true. Like, I'm just going to brief you on the relevant information for the stage that we're at. We're not even going to get it into what stage 2 might look like.
Yeah, and that is why Jesse is my big boy of the episode. Proud of him.
Once again, we're treating Jed as president much like one would a bride, saying, hey, I'm going to flag there's a problem. I'm going to tell you what stage 1 of solving that problem might be. I'm not going to concern you with any further stages at this moment because it's your day.
Yeah, and actually this analogy is very helpful because I do turn to it again later in this episode.
Really?
Yeah. We smash the credits and come back from credits with just like, we're still on the phone. We're back on the phone with Leo. Some calming words from our gal pal.
It's actually so helpful that as chief of staff, he is an Air Force pilot.
Yeah.
So he has some meaningful knowledge to bring to the table.
He shares some knowledge with Jed, and then he also makes Jed laugh. And I think it is actually something that you're kind of taught in first aid training to like kind of distract people often when they're like panicking. Is to try and like make them laugh, essentially. Great strategizing, Leo.
It's actually a great tidbit that I will take into my everyday life. It does make sense because when my father was dying, we had some of the greatest laughs we've ever had. Literally like sat on a plane taking him home to Ireland to die, being like, please don't die on the plane, Dad.
Yeah.
If you could just do anything, if you could just not die on the plane, if you could just hang on until we land.
I know you laughed.
Pissing ourselves.
Yeah. Incredible. We have a new trio this episode.
Because Charlie is on the inside.
It's official. He has been inducted into the inner sanctum. So Charlie, CJ, and Will are all told by Jed, like, what's going on.
Yeah, Charlie kind of sees CJ and Will into the room and then goes to leave, as we've seen him do many a time. And then Jed says, no, Charlie, you stay. Shantae, you stay.
Shantae, you stay, Charlie. I was distracted by another awful necklace from CJ.
Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm really in support of the sheer cream and beige blouse. It's kind of got a subtle artistic pattern to it. It hints towards a kind of foliage pattern, like a pattern from nature, which I often enjoy. And it's like kind of sheer, so she's got a little camisole underneath it, which is just a look that I always support. And then it's borderline ruined by a necklace that is wooden beads, like large wooden beads with a huge kind of teardrop pendant coming down from it in what looks to be a kind of jade.
Yeah, and the wooden beads I think, are like a pale shade of pink.
And it's just totally at odds with the rest of the look, I think, is what is most offensive.
It's offensive.
Because the rest of the look is kind of tonal and delicate and elegant. I just don't know that we needed a chunky accessory.
No, it's offensive to me because Alison Janney is an extremely beautiful woman. And it's so easy to dress her well.
Because she has essentially like a model body type. Like the clothes just like hang on her.
Hang on her in a really
beautifully.
nice way. And as we discussed very early in the show, she has a lovely neck.
She's a gorgeous neck. She does.
She has a great neck. And why are they putting these awful jewels on it?
It was a sign of the times.
Anyway, if anyone can spin the fact that we can't land because the plane may be broken, it is CJ and Will.
Not only might the plane have been broken, but it may have been interfered with. Like, this might be an act of terrorism that we're dealing with. And the press corps is on board.
Like, the Go team, the big guys, are all there with phones.
Yeah.
Now, the added thing, obviously, is that if the press corps find out, then they'll want to send the story down to the ground. But obviously, the fact that we can't land Air Force One is kind of a matter of national security because the president is in the air.
It has a ring of a Kennedy about it. You know what I mean? It's not good. It'll cause widespread mass hysteria, a panic. We cannot let that happen. Now, my biggest issue, if I'm CJ in this moment, is I would want someone higher up than me to tell me how to spin this. I feel like a day-to-day issue I would feel confident spinning, but the issue of how to spin this to the press when you physically cannot get away from them because you are all on a plane together, I would want someone to direct me on this. But obviously, again, Jed is the bride, so we can't concern Jed with how on earth she's supposed to spin this. So she just leaves the room, doesn't make it Jed's problem, and just turns to Will and says, "Can you give me some tarmac jargon?"
And this is where CJ Craig is a fantastic press secretary because that woman can chat shit like no one I've ever encountered.
Her ability to bullshit is one of the things that I love and admire most about her.
Meanwhile, Sweet Will is having a real terrible time, I think.
He is about to have an anxiety attack. CJ immediately clocks this, but just kind of leaves him to it.
Sort of with like Ed and Larry. She goes over to Ed and Larry and is like, "Oh, you should go and talk to Will." And I'm kind of with Will here because I don't mind flying. I'm not a confident flyer because the problem is when I think too much about the fact that I'm on a plane, then I freak out about being on a plane. And I feel like Will is exactly the same sort of flyer, which is
yes.
I want to know about how a plane works to trust it more, but I don't want to know too much so that I'm like, how in the hell does this work?
Which is the fundamental difference between you and I, is that you feel most confident and most safe when you are in control of whatever contraption you are traveling in. Whereas I feel most safe when the control is the furthest it can possibly be out of my own hands.
But you're a really good driver.
Thank you. I don't know that many would agree. I do get kind of stressed driving, but
but that's because driving in America is the most fucking terrifying thing ever because your roads make no sense and everyone's driving massive cars really fast. In the UK, we're just on our little tiny lanes in our little toy cars.
That's scarier to me. I would much rather drive on like a 4-lane highway where everyone knows what they're doing than some kind of dirt road in rural Ireland where it's like, oh, and now I see a car coming, so I must pull over or face a head-on collision.
The key information that we also find out at this point in the episode from one of the members of the press corps is that there have been some fatalities in Kundu of American service people. There have been 5 fatalities. And also in friendly fire as well.
I think that's got to be the worst kind of death to have to announce in wartime, is a friendly fire death.
And I think that it makes sense at the time that this episode was aired that we would bring this up as a concept because this obviously was news that came out of Middle Eastern conflicts at the time. But I think this marks the first American deaths in Kundu.
No, because remember when we were saving
in Red
hostages
Haven's on
before?
fire?
Yes, the administrative post.
Yes. Oh,
People died
fuck.
there.
Yeah, shit. We're going to pop over to the West Wing and into a meeting with Josh, who's working with a Republican congressman.
Who is flirting with him.
Let's get into
Throughout
it.
his entire appearance on this show. And what I will say is Josh is not flirting back.
Stop thinking like a Republican.
I am a Republican.
Make out. Honestly, kiss each other on the mouth.
Which brings me to my new theory. Bisexual Joshua Lyman.
I endorse this. I co-sign it. Honestly, it reads for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I also see Amy as someone who was like, look, we broke up because of a lot of complicated reasons. Didn't work with our work lives, and I understand that your career comes first. But I also think that you need to explore your own sexuality, Josh.
Which would also make sense for the kind of rom-com backstory where he went and got Sam from New York in the rain.
Because he does love Sam a bit.
I kind of feel like they've gotten drunk and made out.
I actually do see that. I actually just think that's like very on brand for both the characters, but also Bradley Whitford and Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe, yes.
Just like one time they were like, had a few too many drinks and then were like, what would happen if we made out right now?
Although I feel like Joshua Lyman, the character, is bisexual, whereas the actor Bradley Whitford is like, hey, it was something I tried one time. It was fun, but it wasn't for me.
I've got a lot of respect for Rob, and he's a gorgeous man, I must say. But, maybe it's just one of those stories you tell. Yeah.
I also can't, they're talking about cleaning up Chesapeake Bay. I obviously can't hear the phrase Chesapeake Bay without thinking about the Hamilton rap.
Yeah, honestly, I did laugh out loud reading your comment. Now, there is a point in this flirting where Tom Landis, this Republican congressman, is like laughing to himself and he's like, shut up. Oh, shut up.
And the smile Josh gives him back in response, it's like, you guys, you're in love.
And then neither of them say anything, but they hold extended eye contact. And then Donna comes in and Tom's like, let's get back to work. What's going on?
Why did Donna interrupt something here?
I also think there were other people in the room, which is even funnier.
It's so funny.
Anyway, we're working out cleaning up Chesapeake Bay with Tom. In a little bipartisan moment, we are pulled out of that meeting by Donna so that she can give news about Air Force One. And in the corridor, we bump into two nasty boys.
Simmel and Siegel, the new Ed and Larry, but evil.
Yeah.
Just a classic congressman being annoying.
They're like, why are you working with Tom Landis? Like, he's such a pushover. And you're like, okay, well, surely that's a good thing for us. Should be working with, like, Democrats. We should try and be bipartisan. Like, that's kind of what government's about.
It's all very Gretchen Wieners.
And then they're like, well, we're going to go and tell everyone that you're doing that.
It's very Gretchen Wieners when Regina George doesn't wear pink on Wednesdays and says, you can't sit with us.
Yeah. Anyway, they're just, like, really shitty. And they're like, it feels like you guys don't even want to win back the House.
Why on earth would Bartlett want a Republican majority? That, like, the whole concept is like a clickbait article come to life that they've just like drank the Kool-Aid of.
It's just really stupid. Like, one of them says something like, seems like your heart's not really in it. Fuck off. It's just like, just like, go and like wind up someone else. I hate people in politics who are like that. Who are like out to be rabble-rousers, but not in a fun way.
Yeah. You rouse rabbles. That's one of my favorite lines that I have from this show.
I actually quoted it in my speech on the day that I got civilly partnered.
You did.
To you, Lee.
Yeah, me.
I called you a rabble-rouser. You rouse rabbles. Toby's wearing a gorgeous suit, Lee.
He's in a beautiful suit. The man loves a subtle checker. He's really discovered it as his thing. I feel like Joshua Lyman is much more of a block color.
Yeah.
Man.
It suits him. It does suit him. Whereas I think Toby can wear something like a checker and he can pair it with a gorgeous paisley tie.
Yeah. Again, just kind of being your civil partner in that sense. Yeah. Aesthetically.
Stunning. I sent Will to the Philippines in my place.
It's not like they're not going to fix it. You don't have to feel guilty about it.
No, I meant thank God I sent Will in my place. Which to me is like Papa Toby in full swing.
It's so cute. Yeah, I feel like he's like, I will not be going on an abroad trip. My ex-wife could give birth at any moment.
Exactly. Back up in the air, Ed and Larry have really been activated in this episode.
Yeah, they are furiously helping CJ look up what might be outside the other side of the plane windows while the fighter jet pulls up on the left.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what can we point the press corps to look to on the other side of the plane?
Which is so funny. And it's very much giving the girls on a badly planned hen do, like trying to look up something to do in the town.
God.
Yeah. But like the rest of the hen do can't know that like nothing was planned. Like the bride can't know that nothing was planned.
Oh my God.
Like let's like things to do in. Could we book on that?
So
do you think
dark.
they'd take a group booking?
That was my worst fear for your hen. It was my absolute worst fear.
But it didn't come to fruition because it was meticulously planned and a great time was had by all.
It was a gorgeous weekend.
Yeah. Look at me. Look at my face. Imagine CJ just like almost clicking at Will. Look at me. Look at my face. She's like, I'm not doing it. You're going to talk to them. And this is one of the many times I'm going to say in this episode, their friendship is so lovely. They have great chemistry as actors. I'm really here for this as a duo.
Agreed. It feels like it's a very different brother-sister dynamic to what she has with Josh, but equally as fun.
Yes. And we do have to give Will credit where it's due.
It was a valiant effort. It was I love that he tried.
He genuinely walked, he put his full pussy into walking into that cabin and going, hey guys, there's something out of this window. You should all come and look. He literally, it's as simple as that. And they're like, what is it? And he's like, some mountains and there's bonfires and fireworks. And to his credit, they do all get out of their seats until one lone journalist is like, there's a fucking fighter jet this side of the plane. We're below decks in Air Force One. And the update from Sweet Jessie is that essentially it's a moonless night and the fighter jet can't see if the wheel is down. So we're just going to have to hang out in the sky for a while and maybe refuel.
Yeah.
Ed and Larry are now with Jed, providing him with support. And it's a huge moment, this moment.
It's a huge moment because we realize that Jed does in fact know the difference between Ed and Larry. He's just been joshing with them this whole time because when it was a serious moment, he did in fact call Larry.
Yeah. Now, if you've been on a flight, Lee, for more than 18 hours, let's say maybe 19 and a half hours by now, you're not going to be the happiest bunny, are you?
No.
So I feel like it's almost deeply unfair that CJ is the one that's having to deal with the entire press corps in a crisis situation.
It's just, I kind of feel like it's tough because obviously the press corps are doing their job, but I kind of feel, and they do give her for her flowers by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
But I could have killed them at this point. I was like, would we not give the woman a break?
She's like, put your phones down, listen to me, I'm going to give you this information. And they're like, no, we've got to get this information to the ground. She has to turn off all the phones in the press cabin. And then they're kind of indicating that she's some sort of dictator.
Yeah, but it's also guys, if the president's life is in danger, that has to be classified information.
We can't just be telling people where in the sky we are and that we can't land.
That's insane.
Back with Leo. And who's back on our screens? Margaret's back.
It's been ages.
She looks amazing. Her hair is kind of grown out, like a longer bob. Looks gorge. Red roll neck. Her Margaret necklace that Bruno gave her.
Oh my God, was she wearing it?
Yeah. And then a navy blazer with almost a red piping trim. Really, really great look from her as per usual. She always slays. Leo and Josh are catching up about the comments from our annoying Democratic congressman and everything that's going on with the Chesapeake cleanup. they're just two boys at work today, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, he's working hard. He is. He also says something very terrifying in the context of 2026 when he says, stopping all bipartisan legislation is like saying, let's blow up the place. Maybe the voters will hire us to rebuild it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Feels uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
This is the point where I just logged. I said, gosh, this is a really good and yet simple episode concept. Really highbrow stuffy. I was having a gay old time, honestly. I was like, we're trapped on a plane. We're doing government business. This is what I came to the West Wing for. And then things just get better because we meet Congressman for New York, Mark Richardson. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. The amount of silence Mark gives before responding to Toby, before he chooses to speak, is very powerful. I immediately like him. I feel that he is a man who considers his words before he speaks, which is actually a quality, believe it or not, that I value in a politician.
Yes. He's called representative. That means he's a senator. Did I get it wrong?
Oh, I thought that Toby said senator, but I think he is a congressman. I think you're right. Yeah.
Mark has got some feelings. He's a proud member of the Black Caucus. And essentially, he is kind of holding back his support on the intervention in Kundu currently. And I've got to say, I do get where he's coming from. I think his arguments are very sound. He's like, why are we going abroad? Like, I need help in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like, Toby's like, young men are dying in Kundu in like their hundreds. And Mark's like, yeah, in Brooklyn too. So, I don't know. I think he's a classy bastard. However,
he is proposing a bold swing.
And the swing is
reinstating the draft, which is wild. Or is it in 2026, as we'll get into later?
Well, I think the quote that he says, which is very interesting, it is in the interest of working class America to be able to choose between more than a McDonald's uniform or a Marine uniform. I'm not opposing the peacekeeping bill. In fact, the whole Black Caucus is going to stand behind it, but with the proposed amendment, reinstating the draft. I think the kids in my district are going to live longer if their fortunes are tied a little more closely to the fortunes of the kids in Joshua Lyman's district. I'm just trying to promote some patriotic unity.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting side of the debate to be on.
Yes, agreed.
And I think that's kind of where this episode ends up going is like, okay, look, Jed's not going to reinstate the draft, but like, let's debate on it. Let's be politicians and let's like pull apart what we could
Which again is something that is a more present argument in 2026 than one might think.
Interesting. When they conclude their meeting, Toby goes to put on his jacket and Mark's like, a drink?
Which we love because he's used some quite strong words with Toby, but then the offer of the drink is the olive branch that tells us he's a classy man, unlike Simmel and Siegel.
Those men have no class. God, it's really good to see Josh like properly grafting. Like he's like reading paperwork. Like he looks tired. He looks like he needs like a pint of coffee. This is the Joshua Lyman from season 1.
Agreed. When we met him asleep on his desk.
Yeah.
But Donna is pacing outside his office, which is very on brand. She's got something on her mind she needs to share.
Shall we?
You know what really gripes my ass? How you doing?
Good.
If anything ever happened to me, chances are it's going to be when I'm sitting next to you, and I'm going to be an also dead. Senior Bartlett advisor Joshua Lyman killed by a wild pack of dogs. Also dead, Diane Moss.
Huh?
I'm not feeling useful right now. I think I should know how to do more things here.
Penny drop. Thank you, Donna. Also, there was a clearer, more concise way for you to verbalize this.
You could have just walked into your boss's office and said, hey, I think it's time that I be given more responsibilities and perhaps we could talk about a promotion.
But she simply must gab about it in a very Donna Moss way. I think this is the start. This is the start of more responsibility for Donna.
Agreed. We are also finally checking in on Donna's Republican dating history.
Yes, because interestingly, after she says that, Josh is like, why do you always date Republicans? And then he lists them as Cliff, Commander Wonderful, Dr. Freeride. which also confirms that Dr. Freeride was a Republican.
Which makes a huge amount of sense. And also, I feel like we're putting Jack Reese firmly in the past because he now also has his own nickname.
Yeah.
Which tells me that Cliff of the three is the only one we respect.
At least the only one that Josh respects.
Yeah.
I would like to note that at this point we do swap over to Leo, and Margaret is kind of getting very obsessed about the concept of having to do like an emergency landing of the plane. And in order to stop her like gabbing at him whilst he's trying to organize very important things, he just gives her like a manila folder and is like, this needs to go back to the office. And she just wordlessly like takes it back. Almost like that's a kind of reset button for her. Toby returns and kind of feeds back that information to Leo. And Leo has a very interesting response to what Toby's saying.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think you can talk to a Vietnam War veteran about reinstating the draft.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take someone back to quite a intense place.
Yeah.
In their brain.
Because we have no idea if Leo volunteered, if he was already in the armed services, or in fact, if like his draft number came up one day and then he went to war.
Yeah, yeah. I just think Josh, Toby, and Leo are all having these really action-packed days where they're like bouncing from meeting into meeting, but then we have these really wonderful, like really tight scenes between different duos of them where they're like feeding back on what they're working on. And it's a really satisfying way of like spending a day in government.
Yes.
And
agreed.
I don't think we've really had an episode like that for a little while, because it does feel like we've been kind of going on events or like campaigning or hosting a big dinner. And actually just like a nitty gritty day in the West Wing was kind of what I really needed.
This episode is really satisfying. Yeah, for sure.
Back in the skies, Jed is playing Patience and being briefed by Will, who feels like he shouldn't be the person briefing Jed on this thing, which is about Colombia and the drug wars. So that is kind of by the by, because that's a story that I find less interesting in this episode. But it does kind of also put Will in like a one-on-one meeting with the president, which feels very cool.
Yeah. Which feels like a big step up from him. He looks much more confident in that scenario than we've seen him in the past.
But if there's a person around who can see through some confidence and see the vulnerability underneath, that's Charlie Young.
He's so observant. He just really gets people.
They stood in the corridor together on Air Force One, and Charlie's like, how you doing? You don't like flying. And Will's like, I don't not like flying. And instead of admitting he's afraid of flying, Will simply says, I experience flying.
Which, I'm going to say is very you.
Yeah, I really feel like we're two peas in a pod on this one, me and Will.
When you're like, no, I just prefer the stairs. I'm not scared of lifts. I just would simply prefer to take the stairs.
It's just that like elevators are just a terrifying death trap. And in a very Donna way, it's just like, also dead in elevator tragedy. Now, CJ is there and kind of joins in with the joshing of Will. And it's like, didn't you do like pilot training? Again, very on brand for me. And Will says, I did it for a lot of reasons, and one of them was the romance of flight, but I got over that.
Will is very funny.
He is very funny, and he's a very dry wit.
He has his own brand of comedy. It's a little bit more whimsical than Toby.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like acerbic and like kind of deadpan. It's more kind of like there is a twinkle there, but it's underneath.
Yeah.
It's very good. I'm really enjoying it personally. But a win for Donna, we must celebrate.
She's been given a weighty task rather than a insane side quest.
So like, honestly, chalk and cheese from last week where they were like, can you stand next to these people and make them feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
She's actually been told to like go to the maintenance team who maintain Angel, aka Air Force One, and basically get like the full lowdown on all of the work that they do on the plane, so that when CJ lands, she's got everything she needs ready to like do a proper briefing, because obviously everyone's going to be like, the plane isn't like well maintained and that's why this issue happened, or it's possible that someone could have tampered with it. What a really great job for her to get.
Also, I'm like, are we moving towards her promotion being in the press department? Because she's being given the task of briefing the press secretary. Like, that's a big job.
Yeah, I like that. I think she would be great as a member of CJ's team, but I do think she would be brilliant in communications. Because she is a people person at the end of the day.
Truly.
But she, on her way to like go and do her job, just like delegates to another member of staff some other things. And I was like, oh, good on her.
Yeah.
Time for Jed to get angry about Mark Richardson.
Yeah.
He's on the phone to Leo, I believe. And I think, you know, when you're like, are you really angry about Mark, or are you angry about the fact that you're still on this plane?
I think you're angry about being on the plane.
He says to Jesse, pretty soon we've got to just stop flying around, right? And I was like, you think he's not trying to problem solve this? Like,
Jesse takes it like a champ, though.
No reaction to that, which is an insane thing to say to someone. You noted down what Jed says to Leo, which I find very funny. And
this is starting to qualify as space travel now, which is such a dad comment to make.
He's not at his best right now. We do get another insight on this like Air Force One section of like Will being delegated work and like assigned particular tasks in a way that, as you flagged before, like we didn't really see that with Sam. Like everyone was kind of almost symbiotically knowing what everyone needed. And so it's just really interesting to see more of the like inner workings of that role.
Agreed.
In the opposite of that,
CJ's basically having to be a hall monitor, and I really hate that for her. It's not where she belongs.
No.
She's not a narc. You know what I mean?
She's like an invigilator, an exam, just like
Yeah.
patrolling up the aisles of different journalists to make sure they're not like on their phones. And on top of that, they're all like asking her questions. And obviously all of their questions are like, worst case scenario, like, do you think this has happened? Like, what would happen if this was the scenario? Blah, blah, blah. And like, she's having to pretend it's all fine. Which is annoying because actually, I guess like the professional in her is like, well, I'm wanting to go and think about all of the ways that I need to like prep for if that's real and like information that I need to pass on to people. Like she's actually being held back from doing work by having to babysit.
Yeah.
Back in the West Wing, we are with Toby and Leo discussing Mark and the draft again.
Yeah. And the tough thing here is, I think, Leo is very emotionally affected by the conversation because I think he is one of the working class kids who got where he got by joining the military. And that was like the step up in the world that got him where he is today was through his military service.
Yeah, because I think Toby's like, oh, you know, Mark's saying that for like working class people in his constituency, it's like the military is only an option because like people need money. Like that's why they sign up. And then Leo says it's for advancement. They go for advancement.
And he's almost like shaking as he says it.
Which to me feels like that's my experience. My experience was it wasn't that I needed to like make a quick buck. It's that I wanted to better myself and take myself out of the situation that I was in.
Yeah. And why are people coming out against the thing that made me the man I am today?
Toby returns with the 5 guys on their way home right now didn't advance very far, I think, is Mark's point.
It's the perfect summation of the argument, I think, that little exchange. And I really admire the way that Toby handled that conversation, I have to say. Leo looks haunted and he's smoking a cig. And Toby kind of starts to call him on the fact that he's smoking a cig and then is like, you know what, fair.
Like today's not the day. And actually, that's very real. As someone who has smoked and now only occasionally smokes, like, for example, if you would see me smoking a cigarette, you might be like, Fee, really?
Yeah.
But there is a certain vibe of cigarette where you'd be like, this isn't for today. You know?
As you know, one of my all-time favorite memories of you involves you smoking a cig.
Was that when I threw open the window in the living room?
Yeah, and you were like already lighting the cigarette as you walked through the living room after a particularly challenging conversation.
Yes. I also, like, that's one of the coolest things I've ever done. Not because I was smoking, but because of, like, how, you know...
Because of the fury. Because of the righteous rage.
It was the fury and the delivery of the righteous rage to Lee Douglas that was cool. Jed is bored, and so I think is, like, trying to pick a fight with Columbia.
Yeah. He's having a tantrum. He then just like shouts at Will Bailey, but also kind of the plane.
Will this plane not land?
I want this plane to land. And then Will Bailey takes such a risk.
Huge. A huge risk.
But it is the perfect de-escalating joke, and it did pay off. And he goes, did it work?
He like looks behind him through the window and like takes a beat, like a perfect comedy beat, and then looks back at Jed and is like, did it work?
Which could have gone so badly. And yes,
I mean,
he makes Jed laugh, just like you said earlier.
He makes Jed laugh. He kills the tension. But I would also scream if I'd been on a plane, like the same flight for more than 25 hours.
Yeah, it's the perfect joke at the perfect time. It also feels like a huge moment for their relationship because it's the first time we've seen Will kind of like give it back to the president.
Yes, which I think is a key moment that like every one of the other members of staff has like had with Jed.
Yes.
We're just kind of hanging in the mess with Josh and Leo. We're not going to clean up the Chesapeake.
We just can't win that battle today, unfortunately.
No, it's just not going to go down like the Democratic National, the DNCC? Is that
Democratic National Convention Committee.
Yes, like
but just the DNC.
They're like, we want to add in all of these extra like taxes on local businesses and like levies and things. And obviously Josh's boyfriend is like, like that's just not going to fly. And essentially we're going to have to like bench this whole bill, which is a real shame because essentially Josh's boyfriend is like in a vulnerable, I've forgotten his name, Landis, yeah. Landis is in like a vulnerable position with his seat. And I think he was like, if I could get this bill through, then that would like help me get re-election. But it's not going to happen. And this is like kind of covert operations to get me kicked out and get a Democrat in.
Yeah, which is crazy that like we've only just done re-election and we're already so focused on the midterms is wild.
But it's a classic, again, a classic of the genre, which is you work really, really hard on something and it doesn't come to anything and no one ever knows.
And you have absolutely no control over the way the cookie crumbles. But again, another man with the perfect de-escalating joke and a little smolder for his man, Joshua Lyman. Landis's response is, what? Democrats want a tax on clams?
Yes, I think I love Landis.
Yeah, I agree. He's a very handsome man.
Yeah.
I did get worried, though, when he says, a friend of mine's a comedian.
This was troubling. And before that, he said a line that also kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies, which was, if I run scared, I run to the right. That's where the money is. And I was like, that's what happened. Because he's like, if you get rid of all of the liberal Republicans and all of the conservative Democrats, what does that leave you with? And I was like, not scared of what that means because it feels very present at the moment in kind of global politics.
Bites fingernails.
Yeah. But going back to a friend of mine's a comedian. The German comedy anecdote was a bit mental, no?
The German comedy anecdote was deeply mental. I will also say, as someone who has performed stand-up comedy to German people, it does not ring true.
No. Because he's like...
I cannot possibly imagine a context in which a German comedy goer says, how come we've not got anyone as funny as you back home? That it would simply never happen.
Because actually, I've watched a couple of German comedians and they absolutely slay. So... Quite funny people.
Yeah. And a very high bar for comedy.
Yeah.
And they will not crack a smile that they do not mean.
No. A tough crowd, but if you win them, boy, that's a real win.
Huge.
Back to Toby and Congressman Richardson. Basically, Toby goes back and is like, look, we're not going to add the draft thing to the bill, but Jed's going to debate it with you. So like, let's do that.
Which I think is great. It gives exposure to the issue that Richardson is trying to raise. I don't think he seriously wanted the draft anyway. It was just he needed a platform for the issues that he wanted to bring to the fore, and this response will get him that.
It's not going to screw you too much.
No, it will screw us the regular amount.
Love Toby. And then they just like kind of have like a little moment together.
Where we discover that Toby is Congressman Richardson's constituent.
Which is really cool.
He grew up in his constituency.
And he has to say, like, look, today I didn't come here as your constituent. I came here, like, for work. Like, my own thoughts are different. And then Richardson's like, did you have a number?
Yeah, what was your draft number? Toby had a draft number. It's so crazy. I always forget how long Vietnam actually was. The fact that I just think of Toby as being like a different generation to Leo, but they both would have been of that age in that conflict.
Yeah. We close out on the plane. We find out that the landing gear now does work.
Yeah.
We're going to land. CJ briefs the press and is like, I'm turning the phones back on. And then like she goes to leave and you can see her being like, fuck, that was such a hard day's work.
Yeah.
And then it's the same dude, and I can never remember his name.
The gray-haired one.
Yeah. Who's always like asks very good questions. He's like
kind of like high school chemistry teacher energy.
Yes, very that. He's like, thank you, CJ. And then everyone's like, thank you, CJ, which I found emotional.
Yeah, it was emotional. But then what was even more emotional was CJ and Will's whole exchange that closed out the episode. It was really beautiful.
They're real friends.
They're real friends. They're outside of work friends at this point. But also just made me really emotional, like hearing a woman talk about like, oh, actually, I think I'm like getting everything I wanted out of life. And I'm a single woman and
like my job, like the fact that like we get in these situations excites me and like gives me meaning and like drive.
And she's essentially like a single woman in her 30s going, yeah, I feel fulfilled. Oh my God.
But that's why CJ Craig is a great character.
I love her so much. She means so much to me, actually.
Yeah, because it's like important representation, because it's also not someone who's making their job their entire life.
Yeah, but also like, I feel like in the beginning we were kind of using CJ's love life and the fact that she was single as a bit of a punchline. And so it feels like we've like been on a real journey with her to the point where she's now saying like, I think I'm like happier this way.
We've come a long way.
Than I would have been, you know, in a maybe more conventional relationship timeline.
Yeah, like we've come a long way from her trying to chat someone up in the gym and falling off the treadmill.
Yeah. And I think it's like very, for as much as we kind of get on Aaron Sorkin's case about sometimes the way that he has in the past written about or for women, it feels like I think he has learned a lot from this character of his own creation.
I agree.
That actually she's at her most interesting when he allows her to be professional and secure and powerful.
Yeah.
Best fashion?
Quick fires? What was your best fashion, Lee?
The Air Force One flight attendants.
I think mine was Margaret in navy and red. And just to see the queen, the icon of fashion in this show back on our screens once more.
I've missed her.
What could a British or Irish politician never get away with?
Laughing at a joke made at their own expense.
Yeah, I actually think we've got a lot to learn from that. I went for being a likable member of the opposition. I think we know what the answer to this is, but the queerest moment that never intended to be queer.
Joshua Lyman's intense connection with Landis.
Yeah. And the birth of bisexual Lyman. And what was your best writerly moment?
It's not going to screw you too much.
No, it'll screw us the regular amount. I think that's a really good punt. Mine, it has to be, I experience flying.
It's just very true for you.
Man, I feel like a man.
Is the president supposed to open a pizzeria while the Republicans control Congress?
Very funny. And I like that Leo doesn't laugh, but then like a few beats later is like, that pizzeria comment was funny, by the way. I think my man, I feel like a man is a friend of mine's a comedian.
Yeah.
Because I think I've been in scenarios where many men have said that to me or have said, I'm a comedian.
I firmly feel that Leo McGarry is a man who only laughs when flirting with women.
Yes. And I think apart from that, he just comments that things are funny. He doesn't laugh.
Yeah. I think he'd be the dad sat in a stand-up gig, stony face through the whole thing, and then at the end go, that was funny, kid.
Yeah. And what was the moment that made you proudest to be an American?
Will and CJ's friendship.
I co-sign
But
that.
also just like CJ's speech about how she feels fulfilled by her job in life.
Beautiful. So I think we're learning about the draft. Am I right?
We are. And I am fired up. So, the American draft, conscription. It first hit the United States of America during the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. However, it was common in this time for wealthy men to send substitutes to fight in their place, as we learned in our DAR session last week.
Yes.
But this did happen with the Union Army as well as with the Confederate Army. Conscription was more controversial, in fact, in the North than it was in the South. And this controversy culminated in the racially charged draft riot of 1863, which was 4 days of violence across the streets of New York City, where basically it resulted from a labor discontent with the inequalities of what the draft meant for men of different classes. Because laboring people generally supported the Union war effort, but they had no voice in the Republican Party, and their wages were generally less than $500 a year at the time. And there was, as I mentioned, a federal provision allowing draftees to buy their way out of doing military service for $300, or about $8,000 in today's money.
Which is commented on by Congressman Richardson.
Yes. So when the drawing of names begins in New York City on the 11th of July, 1863, and this is where it gets tough for me personally, mobs of mostly foreign-born, quote, especially Irish workers, can just see them now, the old paddies, being like, I will not, this is ridiculous. Assaulted residents, defied the police, attacked draft headquarters, burned buildings, including the homes of abolitionists, attacked Black people and those who refused to take part in the riot. So obviously, on the one hand, I kind of go, Irish immigrants in the 1860s in New York, they've lived through the famine. Like they probably have some trauma that has needed to be unpacked at some point, which is obviously coming out in this violence. However, racism, obviously not okay.
No.
But it was closely associated with the racial competition for jobs in the laboring class. And many northern laborers were scared that if the slave population was emancipated, that would cause an influx of African-American workers who would take their jobs. Employers did actually use free Black workers as strike breakers during this time. So this had been brewing for some time, and it led to this particular draft day, white rioters attacking the homes and businesses of innocent African Americans, which is harrowing and awful and disgusting.
Pretty bleak chapter of history.
Absolutely. It was finally quelled by the police with the help of the 7th New York Regiment, who had to be called back from Gettysburg in order to stop the violence. And once that had happened, the drawing of names for the draft continued without incident on the 19th of August. At the end of the Civil War, the draft was suspended for 50 years until it was reinstituted when the US entered World War I with the Selective Service Act signed into law by Woodrow Wilson in 1917. And that was necessary because the peacetime army at the time was only 100,000 men, and the Selective Service Act inducted 2.8 million men into the armed forces over 2 years. They initially targeted men between 21 and 30, but they eventually expanded that to able-bodied men between the ages of 18 and 45. Obviously then, interestingly, World War II, the draft actually began before the US entered the conflict. It was the first peacetime draft in US history. But FDR could kind of see where things were going, and he was like, we need to be prepared. And so the Selective Training and Service Act was signed into law in September 1940 and required all men between 21 and 36 to register with the Selective Service System. 45 million men registered and 10 million were inducted between November 1940 and October 1946. That Selective Training and Service Act was due to expire in 1947, but President Harry S. Truman felt that it wouldn't be safe given the global commitments of the US military at that time. So he reenacted it in 1948 because, of course, the US had a big presence in places like Berlin at that point still with the fallout of World War II. It was then due to expire again in 1950, but then the Korean War broke out.
Yeah.
That same month that it was due to expire in 1950. So it was reauthorized in 1951, and all men between 18 and 26 were required to register for the draft. And 1.5 million men were inducted that way into the services during the Korean War, which of course leads us to Vietnam. This was really when the selective service system fell under scrutiny for the first time because they introduced deferments based on family status and academic standing, which was a merit system which was weighed by a local selective service board. So often men who would know you as a draftee, and it seemed to favor those who were wealthy, leading to the perception, as laid out in this episode, that poor men were disproportionately shouldering the burden of the Vietnam War. LBJ tried to fix this and kind of rationalized the deferment system in 1967, but public resistance to the draft continued to grow because the war wasn't a popular war as well.
Right.
And so it started to be that draftees would destroy their draft cards publicly as a form of public protest. And the protesters saw this as a symbolic expression protected by the First Amendment, but the Supreme Court ruled in the United States v. O'Brien in 1968 that the destruction of draft cards inhibited important government objectives and then was therefore unrelated to the First Amendment, which did really stop people from protesting in this way by destroying their draft cards. LBJ chooses not to run for re-election in 1968. Richard Nixon then comes into office in 1968 and signed an amendment which returned selection to the lottery draft system that had existed in World War II. It was portrayed as being more equitable because the oldest members of an eligibility pool were selected first, but you couldn't pull public opinion back behind the draft at this point. Between 1965 and 1973, 1.7 million men were inducted into the forces through the draft, and an estimated 500,000 men dodged the draft from methods between fleeing the country to just refusing to respond to their draft notices. 200,000 men were charged with draft evasion, and 8,000 were convicted. But finally, on January 27th, 1973, the Department of Defense announced it was suspending the draft, and the Military Selective Service Act finally did expire that June. When Jimmy Carter came into office, 1977, again, just our boy being on the right side of history, he issued a blanket pardon for all those who had been charged with evading the draft during the Vietnam War. That was one of his first acts as president. But when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, Carter reactivated the Selective Service Act by executive order in 1980. It didn't mandate military service, but it just required men between 18 and 26 to register with the Selective Service system, which has continued until the present day in the US.
Right. I didn't know that.
Men between those ages are required to register. During the 1980 presidential campaign, Reagan criticized the reintroduction of registration and promised to abolish the selective service system if elected, but he, when actually president, made no move to do so. He just, I think, used it as a running point and had no intention of ever changing it. There are various amendments that happen over the course of the 80s to essentially incentivize registering. As of 2024, all but 4 states offered selective service registration options when you apply for a driver's license.
Right.
It's part of it at the same time. And failure to register is a felony and it carries the risk of prosecution. It's not often prosecuted, but it could mean 5 years in jail.
Whoa.
And it could also mean that you're ineligible for student financial aid or to get a federal job. Men between the ages of 18 and 26 are required to register, but you don't have to be a citizen. That includes refugees, green card holders, visa holders, and undocumented immigrants.
Wow.
There have been occasional efforts to reintroduce the draft, especially obviously following September 11th, which I think is a lot of the discussion that we see in this episode. But as in the 21st century, the US military has only ever been an all-volunteer body. There's never been a draft this century. But later this year, the selective service system for the first time will begin automatically registering the names of draft eligible men.
Based on birth certificates?
So, as of 2024, 81% of men aged 18 to 25 registered with the selective service system. The selective service system then earlier this year proposed replacing that self-registration with a model of automatic registration, which would gather other personal information from various federal government agencies. They submitted the rules change to review to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, which is part of the Office of Management and Budget, or the OMB, as we've heard referred to many times on this show. And the process to make this automation happen will likely involve other federal agencies that hold this personal information of draft eligible men, like the Social Security Administration and the Census Bureau. Neil Victor of the New York Times said government officials bracing for what experts say are potential confrontations with China or Russia, while military recruiting has slumped, plan to comb other federal databases to bolster the list. The changes drawing renewed attention as the U.S. war with Iran unfolds and sows questions about whether it might be a prelude to a draft.
It's also just like that kind of icky thing about people's information not being within their consent.
Yeah. Congress kind of tucked the rules change into the National Defense Authorization Act for 2026, which Trump signed into law in December. On March 8th, when being interviewed, Caroline Leavitt told Fox News that Trump does not remove options off the table when she was asked what she would tell mothers who were worried about the draft returning. Jeremy Kessler, a professor at Columbia Law School who's written a lot about the military draft, said the size of Iran and its army presents different obstacles to Iraq and Afghanistan. I think the landmass of Iran is about 3 times the size of Iraq. He said it's really not clear that that would be logistically doable without turning back on the draft. Some anti-war critics have focused on Donald Trump's 20-year-old son, Barron, because when the draft was finally phased out in 1973, 20-year-old men were the first priority selection group. People whose 20th birthdays fall in the year of the draft would be the first to get induction orders, followed in order by those who are 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and then back to 19-year-olds, and then to those who've had their 18th birthday within 6 months. Critics of Trump have basically called for his son Barron to enlist since the war began in February.
Right.
Including former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura, who was himself a decorated Vietnam War veteran. He went on Piers Morgan Uncensored and said, do something your father didn't have the courage to do. Do something your father didn't have the patriotism to do. A war is justified if you're willing to send your kids, because how can you send somebody else's kids to a war if you won't send your own?
It's an interesting point.
It is. Trump himself, during the Vietnam War, received 4 student deferments and 1 medical deferment for bone spurs on his heels, although at the time he was a fit and active college graduate who played football, tennis, and squash and was in the process of taking up golf. But for that diagnosis of heel spurs, he got a coveted 1Y medical deferment, and saw no active duty in Vietnam.
Mm.
Similarly, Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump Sr., who died in 1999, was in his 30s during World War II, and he was deemed necessary to the war effort in the construction sector as a rising contractor, and so he saw no active service during World War II.
Mm.
So basically, going back 3 generations, the Trump family have had no military service.
Right.
Which, as someone who has started a war, is challenging in a publicly facing way. Jesse McKinley, writing for the New York Times, wrote, almost as soon as the bombing of Iran started in late February, memes and AI-generated images began to appear showing the Trump scion in fatigues and other military gear, implying he should be sent to battle. The images were shared widely on social media, sometimes alongside a hashtag #SendBaron. Even as one satirist started a draft Baron Trump website, suggesting that sending Baron Trump to war would reflect his father's strength. Former Trump supporters have also mentioned the idea of his son serving, including podcaster Theo Vaughn, suggesting that Baron Trump should help fight the war. He posted, the elites and the politicians that are leading us into these wars might make different choices if it was their children. The last son of a president to go to war was Beau Biden. He was deployed to Iraq when his dad was vice president. 4 of FDR's boys served in World War II, as did several of Theodore Roosevelt's sons. The New York Times said Brooke Foucault Wells, a professor of communication studies at Northeastern University who has studied hashtag activism, said online campaigns and slogans can frame the public's thinking about divisive topics, noting that hashtag #SendBaron seems to be an attempt to call some attention to the class tensions around wars and the military, which I thought was super interesting because that's so much of what this episode is about, and we're still talking about it 25 years later.
What an interesting thing to have as your specialism.
Yeah. Especially today in 2026.
Yeah.
The South Park comedy writer, Toby Morton, who was the one who created the Draft Baron website, said the site has had 5 million views and visits since launching in February, and there has been renewed attention since the automatic draft registration broke. He said the impetus was how, quote, historically kings sent their sons to fight alongside everyone else's. Trump often leans into that king-like image of strength and power. So the satire simply asks the obvious follow-up question. Now, I'm not here to talk about whether or not any random 20-year-old boy should go to war.
No.
Baron is not his father. But I do think it's a really important question when we consider the fact that it, again, like Vietnam, is an incredibly unpopular war. The majority of even Republicans don't support this.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that Trump would have ever even conceived of starting it if there was a possibility that his own son would be sent there.
Yeah.
However, Politico asked California's Governor Gavin Newsom about the possibility of a draft, and he said, I think we have to look at ways we can frame a possibility to serve for a year, 6 months minimum, year, 18 months. This notion of shared experiences, I don't know how else you get this country back together. Which I think is also an interesting take.
It is an interesting take.
I mean, I read a Guardian article that was like, it's, you know, it kind of took the tone that this episode does of like the draft actually being reinstated is a completely archaic concept.
Yeah.
But obviously it does still exist in other countries to this day. And I can see the argument about Trump putting his money where his mouth is, for lack of a better expression.
But it does feel like in the American zeitgeist at the moment, there's this really big conversation going on around like economic difference and the haves and the have-nots and the super rich and people who are living on the breadline. And I think that's so tied up with the concept of the draft.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense that they're kind of pulling Baron Trump into this because, as you said, it's asking the president to acknowledge that some lives aren't worth more than others. And that feels like that could be quite a powerful argument in America at the moment.
And there's also the potential that, like, Why is the world of MAGA so obsessed with Hunter Biden? Why can they not stop talking about Hunter Biden? Well, maybe it's because they really don't want to talk about Beau Biden. Because of the contrast that shows between the Biden family and the Trump family.
Yeah.
That, Biden was vice president and actively dealing with the war in Iraq while his son was fighting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting that just as we're watching this episode, it's a conversation that's actually come back around.
And it's so multifaceted, isn't it? Because just as soon as you're like, no, I think I know how I feel about it, you'll like read some more and then you'll be like, oh, maybe I don't feel so good about that. Or maybe I do actually want to change my mind on that thing. It does. Yeah, it's very interesting. I really don't like the idea that like individuals' information is being taken without their consent to just put them onto to just store their information. Even that, I think, kind of goes against my values. And I feel like there's a lot of that going on, not behind closed doors, but without as much public knowledge as there should be.
Yeah.
And in the UK as well, like big American, fucking weird, sketchy American companies like Palantir getting like big contracts over in the UK. And you're like, I don't want to be a tinfoil hat wearing, nutter out in the middle of nowhere, but there's just things about it that feel a little off to me.
Yeah.
I like it when we watch episodes, Lee, and it like leaves us really like chewing on a topic that, Aaron would have been putting on TV back in 2003 and like 13 years down the line, 23 years down the line even. Millennial slip there. 23 years down the line, we're still discussing it in as much depth.
Yeah. I think we've got time if you have any. We're obviously like heading into the climax of the season. Do you have any predictions that you want to make before we go?
Ooh, I really don't know what our like inciting end of season incident is going to be.
I know, and I feel like the one last season for season 3 came so out of left field that I couldn't even predict what it's going to be.
I think it's going to be something big because it's Aaron's finale. But that makes me feel that either he's not going to kill off characters because he's sabotaging his own show, or we will lose characters because they won't want to continue with the project without him as the like lead writer on it. It's difficult to know. I mean, it does feel like we've kind of been simmering the terrorist storylines. So there's a possibility of like homeland violence.
Yeah. I also wonder if I feel like that cigarette from Leo was kind of marked.
Leo at capacity.
It was the fact that it was kind of made such a moment of, because we often see Jed having a cheeky cig, never Leo.
No.
I wonder if something's happening with Leo. We also obviously brought up Geordie last week. Are we drawing his relationship with Jordan to a climax?
Yeah, I mean, it's really all up for grabs. It's not going to be anything Jed related. Like, Josh had his big arc with Amy last season and at the start of this season as well.
I think CJ feels safe because I feel like we're really teeing up her and Will to have a
long-running relationship.
So I feel safe with CJ. I
mean, are we going to have something? Will we have the birth of the twins?
Oh, yes.
Surely we'll have the birth of the twins. And then I wonder if Charlie's going to have another storyline.
Well, hopefully he gets Zoe back.
I would love, do you know what? I'd love an end of season finale where Toby becomes the father. Well, he becomes a father to twins, and Charlie Young gets back together with Zoe.
I'm manifesting an uplifting
end of season
4. We've not had one yet. Honestly, Aaron, it would be your most original. I say this, he wrote it 23 years ago. It would be your most original season finale yet if it was a happy one.
People wouldn't expect it. They'd love it.
They've all been so dark.
Yeah. I fear he will not give us what we want, but we can live in hope, Lee.
Yeah. Should we do this next week?
Let's meet up again next week and gab again. On episode 20, I can't believe.
How has this happened? We're Queer Gals Watch. wherever you get your socials, queergalswatch@gmail.com. I'm always looking for study session requests. I've done so many at this point that any ideas are always welcome. So that's a great place to send those. And please do check out our Patreon, because I really enjoy our Discord. There's now a thread that I need to show you, Fee, where it just everyone puts pictures of their pets.
Yay. Well, I must add to that because obviously my dog is named Jed.
Yes, of course.
It's
I must
actually
have a
his
picture of Jed to
birthday. It's his
post.
birthday tomorrow.
Oh.
Big grown-up boy. Definitely. And if you don't have a second to do any of those things, but you do have like a little moment on your commute, or when you're sort of taking a little pause at home, we would love a little rate and review on wherever
Yes.
you get our podcasts. It really helps get our podcast to other people who love The West Wing and who might enjoy it as well. So we would really, really appreciate that if you have the time.
Yeah. And if you're part of any other West Wing fan groups, letting your pals there know about us, they can relive it through us. That would be beautiful.
Because everyone needs a reason for a rewatch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone needs a little excuse. And maybe a new podcast is the best thing. Well, Lee, have a delightful evening. I hope that you stay cool.
I'm so warm.
And I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.